part of who I am. It's a part of something special that I get that other people don't get. It makes me feel a little bit more who I'm supposed to be. And like, I love learning, for example. I love discovering new things, and I love applying myself, and I think art is kind of a reflection of your time and your patience and effort, and I don't know, I want to put something out there that lasts, and something I can be proud of. I think that's one of the biggest reasons I teach, too.
Hello, Maricopa. It's me, Sergeant Hal Kuger. I'm here with my friend Maria Johnson, the Crisis Director from Horizon Health and Wellness here in Pinal County. Thank you so much for joining me. We're here today to talk about a new program called 988. Maria, what is 988?
988, this is a 3-digit crisis line number. It is access to the National Crisis Line, which is currently 1-800-273-TALK. This is an additional number, 3-digit number, easy to remember to access mental health support, where you can call, speak with a trained crisis professional if you're experiencing a mental health emergency, if there's emotional distress, substance use issues. It also has veteran services available, and it'll prompt you to access that. So this is a new 3-digit easy-to-remember number to access that support.
988, I think I could remember that. Does it replace 911?
No, it's essentially parallel to 911. 911, if there is in fact a life-threatening emergency or concern, still utilized, but this is in addition to it where there's a mental health issue and that you want to have a mental health professional support. Also where it can be assessed and determined if a mobile team needs to be called out to your home to assist you and assess further need.
Great. And are they available 24/7?
Available 24/7, and it's free and confidential.
Perfect, perfect. And there are different ways to reach 988, right?
Yes, 988, or you can text 988, and there is also the online chat feature, which is 988lifeline.org.
Wonderful. Maria, thank you so much for joining us today. The 988 number is a brand new number that is going to save lives and help you and your friends and family through crisis. Thank you for joining us today. Maria, thank you for coming and being here and joining us, and we'll catch you later. Thank you.
Your communications coordinator for the City of Maricopa. I'm joined with Nathan Steele, the director of our Economic Development Department, and we're here at Sonoran Creek Marketplace, where the options here are getting a little sweeter with the opening of Crumble Cookie here in the city of Maricopa. So thank you for joining us, Nathan. Tell us what goes into the back end. Some of our people might not know how to get one of these popular franchises here in our community.
Yeah, well, all of this is years in the making, frankly, and not just with Crumble, but when you look at all of the tenants that are coming to Sonoran Creek and across the entire city, all of it is years in the making that starts with the landowners, the property owners, the developers, as well as all of the city planners and economic development professionals getting together to make these deals work, make these packages work. When it comes to individual tenants like Crumble, like Mod, like Jimmy John's, like ATI, and all the others here in Sonoran Creek, they're looking at the overall growth of the city. They love seeing the new homes. They love seeing the apartments. They want that diversity of housing because they know that's what's going to produce the workforce housing that they need. Everyone is always asking me, and as part of my job, I'm talking to developers and retailers on a daily basis. And one of the questions these groups are always asking me is, where are my employees going to live? And they love seeing that we're building new homes, building new rooftops daily. All right, and that's what's bringing these businesses in. And I'll tell you, it's not going to stop with these. There's more and more talks we're having, more and more users coming. That's super exciting. If we look at more of Sonoran Creek, this is just some of the more and more ones that are going to be coming. Take a look at Sprouts. You see all of those inline shops with a restaurant on the end cap, and Marshall's is going to be on the other end cap. And then just as this building over here that has Mod Pizza, Crumble, Jimmy John's, and ATI has multiple tenants, this other building under construction is another multi-tenant building where you can expect several more shops to join the Maricopa family.
Wow, that's an incredibly expansive addition to our community. It's a very exciting time to be a resident of Maricopa. Hey, for more information on what's new and coming here in your community, check out what'snewmaricopa.com.
Two-year-old Mia Preston is the picture of unbridled joy.
Oh, that's pretty. It's so pretty. Swimming.
This picture shows Mia gliding with an ear-to-ear grin during her first swim lesson. It's an image Mia's mother can cherish forever, especially when she compares it against the one taken just 43 days earlier.
They say it takes 21 seconds for a child to go unconscious in the water.
For Mia, those seconds of misfortune happened while her family was on vacation. She was playing with her siblings when, in a moment of distraction, Mia slipped out a back door and fell into the pool.
She basically drowned. My husband had to pull her out of the pool and administered CPR.
Mia's father continued that CPR for over 20 minutes until paramedics arrived and got Mia's heart beating again on its own. But Mia's battle was just beginning. She would spend 9 days in the ICU, 9 days during which her parents not only didn't know whether she'd survive, but also if she'd ever be the same.
Who's that? Yeah. Who's that, Mia? Who's that? Who's that?
Mushy bear.
Mushy bear.
Mushy bear. Should we open it? Run. Come back and hide.
Against the odds, Mia's condition improved, and miraculously, she's now on the road to a full recovery, a road that included a quick return to the water.
As soon as Mia got out of the hospital, the first thing I wanted to do was get her back into the water because she loved swimming, and we were really nervous that this accident would have prevented her from probably ever swimming again.
The more frequent outcome is a story that's become far too familiar for Arizona families, and one the city of Maricopa is determined to rewrite with a program called Maricopa Swims Safe in the Water.
The Maricopa Swim Safe in the Water program is designed for kids, and essentially the purpose of that is to start teaching kids at an early age how to be able to assist themselves in the instance that they fall into the water.
Suspended during the pandemic, the program is now making a comeback. Participating elementary schools bus first graders to Copper Sky for their immersive classes.
This is 4 45-minute sessions. The first 10 minutes we go over talking about water safety and going through our safety ranger program. And then we spend the rest of the time in the water going from not being comfortable to put their face in the water to being able to jump in the deep end, float on their back, and get out of the water safely.
The goal is
Order, Monday, November 14th, 2022. Please stand for invocation by Commissioner Irving and Pledge of Allegiance by Commissioner Robinson.
Thank you for another day, and let us rejoice and be glad in the day. As we go about our business, we just ask that you be with us and guide us, lead us in our discussion. And again, we just ask that you lift up all, especially the young children who are dealing with the flu and the illness, and with their anxious parents about what's going on. We ask this in your name. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Chair Huggins.
Here.
Vice Chair Sharp. Commissioner Yoakum.
Here.
Commissioner Robertson. Here. Commissioner Frank.
Here.
Commissioner LaFall. Commissioner Irving.
Here.
Madam Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you. I do want it stated that Commissioner Sharp and Commissioner LaFall were trying to get on. Unfortunately, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties. All right. Next item, call to the public. If you wish to speak, please complete a speaker card and submit it to the chairman prior to the start of the meeting. The procedure to follow: if you address a commission commission requests that you express your ideas in 5 minutes or less and refrain from any personal attacks or derogatory statements about any city employee, a fellow citizen, or anyone else, whether in the audience or not. The chairman will limit discussion whenever she deems such an action appropriate to the proper conduct of the meeting. Before we open it up to have anybody come in, I do want to read an announcement. The following cases were originally advertised for November 14th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting, has been moved to December 12th, 2022 Planning Commission meeting. If you are here to speak on any of the following cases, which is a minor general plan amendment, GPA 22-12, Mr. Lee, ZON 22-08, Maricopa Mixed Use, ZON 2209, Artesian Village, or ZON 22-10, Allure Apartments. You can enter your comments into the public record at this time, or hold your comments for the December 12th, 2022 Planning and Zoning meeting. And we do apologize for the inconvenience. Unfortunately, there was a little bit of a snafu in the notification process. With that being said, if anybody else has anything else they'd like to address, please come forward and state your name. Seeing none, we'll go ahead and move on to the minutes. Approval from the October 24th, 2022.
Move approval.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. All right. Regular agenda 5.1, DRP 22-20, a request by Charlie Scholster of Lincoln Avenue Capital requesting review and approval of site landscape elevation and photometric plans for a proposed 252-unit multi-story multifamily development on approximately 13.92 acres gross located at the southeast corner of North White and Parker Road and Lococo Street. Discussion and action.
Good evening. Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Derek Shearer with the Planning Department, here to present DRP 22-20. And hello? Can you hear it now? Okay. It's just kind of low and you got to get right into it. All right, starting again. Hi, my name is Derek Shearer. I'm a planner with the Planning Department, here to present the case DRP 22-20, Ironwood Ranch Development. This is a development review permit for entitlement to develop a multifamily development. The applicant is Charlie Schuster of Lincoln Avenue Capital. The site is located just north of City Hall here at the southeast corner of North White and Parker Road and Lococo Street. The site covers approximately 13.92 acres. The applicant proposes to develop the site with a multifamily residential development. If the commission remember, the city just recently rezoned this property to multifamily about 3 months ago in anticipation of some sort of multifamily development occurring there. Since that time, this application has come in and we've processed it, and it is ready to be presented to the commission. This is in support of the Village Center concept, the general plan, where the City Hall Complex Center will be a Village Hall Center with high-density residential, commercial, and government and other recreational facilities around it. This proposal specifically is for 10 three-story apartments that'll house 252 units for a density of 19.7 dwelling units per acre. The units will be a mix of 2, 3, and 4 bedroom units. It is tailored towards housing families, not just single individuals, though there may be some that live there in a 2 or 3 bedroom if that's what they choose. The site is going to provide 500 parking spaces with 10 electric vehicle charging stations installed and 40 other stations pre-wired for a total of 50 stations over the 500 parking spaces. Parking spaces will be both covered and uncovered, as you can see on the site plan. There's a rather robust, whoa, that's kicked in, sorry. There's a rather robust amenity package. As you can see on the site plan, the site is somewhat bisected by that middle access road. You have an east and west side. The buildings are divided on each side, and so are the amenities. On the west side of the road, you'll have the clubhouse with the fitness center, and inside the clubhouse, there's going to be a cafe, and then outside of it, a pool with a sun deck, outdoor barbecue kitchen, ramadas. There's 2 tot lots, one on the east half, one on the west half. Open play areas, shade ramadas. There's a walking path with a garden center on the east side that I'll show in a moment on the landscape plan. Overall, the site provides about 25% open space when the requirement is 20%. We can see here are the elevations of a typical building. On the top, I believe that is the west side, and on the bottom is the east side. So the buildings are generally the same. However, the applicant has, in conversations with staff, to differentiate and create sort of neighborhoods where the color pattern of the buildings from the east and west half have a slight differentiation, creating this sort of neighborhood effect. So when guests, visitors come in, they can kind of differentiate between all these buildings on where they're going. For the landscape package, there's a variety of trees and shrubs within the parking areas and rather robust perimeter landscaping that varies between 20 and 15 feet in depth with trees and shrubbery. Decorative landscape within the garden walking path areas, and I have a zoom in to show you in a moment, but the walking path areas would be on the east side of the project. If you're looking at the screen on the right side where you see the little blue cabana, that's one of the tot lots. Then on the left side, to the west of the pool, there's another tot lot there. So there's 2 tot lots for this development. And then the open space all around. Here we can see some zoom-ins. On the left, we have the clubhouse area in the center of the site with the pool cabana, a play area, trellis, an open turf play area, the barbecue ramadas. There's also on the east side, we have 2 open play areas that are turfed, another tot lot, shaded ramada, then these walking garden paths through the decorative landscaping. There's also a dog park and a dog spa. A dog spa is where you go and bathe the dogs after they get all dirty playing in the dog park. So this application has gone through the development review process, and if I could just take a minute to go through it. So when an application is submitted to the city for entitlement, planning takes it in and routes it to 4 different departments. It goes to planning, it goes to the fire department, it goes to the building department, and the engineering department. Planning looks at the land use compatibility. We look at the zoning appropriateness, setback standards, landscape standards, design standards for the buildings, and the functionality of the site. Engineering, they look at the engineering standards right up front before anything gets too deep into development of plans. They make sure that the roads and streets meet our standards. They review the traffic analysis, which either a traffic impact statement or a traffic impact analysis, which analyzes all the traffic patterns in the area and makes recommendations on what sort of improvements may or may not be needed on the roadways around the proposed development to satisfy the traffic conditions that this will generate. They also look at water and wastewater, and then flood and drainage control. Building takes a quick look at it to make sure that nothing jumps at them that's going to be in contrast to the 2018 International Building Code before it gets approved for entitlement and then goes to building permits. The fire department looks at the public safety concerns. They follow the 2018 International Fire Code, and they look for any site restraints that firefighters and emergency services have enough access to the buildings and around the site in case there's an emergency. After all of those departments click off approval, then it's ready to be presented before this commission and then elsewhere and go to building permits after approval if it's approved. So this site was just recently rezoned. As you can see on the right-hand side, that's a zoning map. It is high-density residential, which this is a by right use under the high-density residential. So no zoning amendment is required for it. The general plan calls for this to be high-density residential. Again, that is by right underneath that category. No general plan amendment is needed for this. There's two cases presented back in July to the commission for the rezone and the general plan setting up for this ultimate development here. Staff has analyzed all the materials that have been submitted and presented to the commission, so the other departments that have done their reviews, and the proposal is consistent with the existing zoning. It's consistent with the general plan designation for the property. The proposal has been fully vetted by all the internal departments, and it meets all the requirements of Chapter 18 of the zoning ordinance. Notification letters were sent to stakeholders within 600 feet of the property on October 26th, and a sign was posted on the site. The sign was posted on the site right outside where Lococo Drive meets North White and Parker Road. So anyone coming out of the neighborhood across the street, they would see the notification sign right in front of them as they were pulling out of the subdivision there. And therefore, staff recommends approval of Ironwood Ranch DRP, case number DRP 22-20, subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report and or as amended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. The applicant is here with their consultant team. They also have a presentation should the commission wish to have any questions directed at them or see their presentation. With that, if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Yocum.
Comment and a question. I like what I see, and I'm impressed with our paying attention to getting away from the warehouse look which we've had in the past. I think the use of the elevations, the textures, the materials, colors, and especially the building ends and the corners, I think incorporating those give us a little, it's much easier on the eye. The question I have, and it was brought up, I'm looking at the applicant's report on page 3. You're referring to it administratively. The staff is being asked to administratively review a slight modification from the requirement of private open spaces, and I'm just wondering what you mean by administratively review.
Yes. Under the zoning ordinance, the zoning administrator has a certain levity to not hold a project to the exact letter of the zoning ordinance, and it's sort of with the open space, private open space for this. What they are providing are the patios and balconies. In the ordinance, it requires 120 square feet on the ground level, then 60 feet, then 40 feet. And in lieu of that, they've provided the 60 square feet for all of them, but then put the extra space out into the public sphere of the public open space and the landscape. And that's why we have a 25% open space instead of the 20% that's required. So it was moved from being on a patio to being out and providing amenities for everybody.
Thank you.
Irving.
I had the same issue, but it's sort of a technical one. Our present standard calls for 120 on the ground floor. They're asking for a slight difference, which is 50%. I guess I'm questioning the administrative approval versus handling it as a variance, because 50% is not slight. And I guess I'm, in other words, to me, there's probably more protection.
Derek,
If we handle it as a variance, which I have no problem with, as opposed to you administratively giving a 50% relief. That's
Madam Chair, Commissioners, excellent observation, and I would just address it in three different ways. One, Derek is absolutely right that the provision is within the code to grant the levy to be able to make that judgment. Number two, this is not the first time that this has come up in our discussions regarding private space and outdoor space. We are currently in the midst of a text amendment that is going to change that requirement moving forward, as we've determined that it really doesn't make sense in the way it's attempting to be administered.
That's not my issue. I have no problem with doing it.
Right.
I'm just looking at the way to do it. Not, I agree, I have no problem with the 60, 60, 60.
Right.
I am just questioning, is it better or correct to handle it through a variance because it is existing, or to you administratively say you have a right to? That's all I'm asking. I don't want to debate it. We've already done that.
Right.
Does that make sense? So I'm just asking, which way do you want us to do it?
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, the provision 1835 within that section of the code gives us the ability to make that zoning clarification, which is the route we have chosen to.
I have no problem if you want to do it that.
But where do you draw the line on that? I mean, this is saying slight, but it's half, it's 50%. That wouldn't be slight.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, you're absolutely right, and that is, taken by a case-by-case basis. It's not based on any one specific item. It's based on accumulation of the totality of it. For example, in other PADs that we've approved throughout, that we've looked at with respect to private open space, we've reduced that number by 50%. So we feel that that is a fair number. In fact, that's reflective of the code amendment that's coming forward. So in this specific case, we look at the consistency from one development to the other, and we're comfortable making that determination.
Again, I'm worried you're missing my point. I think it's a legal one, and that is, you are basically saying you administratively can take any of our codes and amend it when you want to. I just think that's a dangerous precedent as opposed to letting us take it and just doing a variance. That's the only thing I'm questioning, because what you're saying is if you want to do it without any input from us, you have a right to do it. But that's what you want to do.
Madam Chair, Commissioner Irving, if I might, this code change came before this P&Z, I believe, last in 2021. It went to council in 2021, and it provided this kind of alternative design for staff to make these determinations. Staff's made the determination this is the route that they want to go. Yeah.
And if I could just add to that, part of it as well, it was staggered more on the bottom, and it goes up on the top one. That one was increased.
That's not the issue. That's not the issue.
That's where the rationale comes in.
Right, Madam Chair, just one final thing, and I brought the actual provision up, and I'd like to read it to you. The zoning administrator may evaluate and possibly accept or recommend to the decision-making body alternative design requirements to meet the intent and the spirit of the code and other policy documents of the City of Maricopa. So what we're doing is we are making that determination that we are able, and we are recommending approval of that to the body. Ultimately, it's your decision. It's not the zoning administrator. It just gives me the flexibility to bring this before you for your approval.
And he's not arguing that point. What he's trying to say is the fact that we have no problem, absolutely no problem with any of this that's been happening. The issue is if you're going to be doing that, then it doesn't need to state a slight variance in an applicant's request.
Okay, duly noted. I understand.
I mean, if you as the administrator wants to do that, that's fine. You have that right based on the code.
Right.
But to sit there and put it in the narrative from an applicant, it makes it seem like they're going around everything.
Understood.
That's where it's got nothing to do with this particular situation. It's the totality of it in wholeness. Does that make sense?
It does.
Perception.
Correct.
That was my concern. It is that when we have it in the applicant's material, it's the perception of the public and how they're looking at that and where's it coming from. That's what I was concerned about.
If you read this, it says, the applicant requests that staff administratively review a slight modification from the requirement that private open spaces, yada, yada, yada. So they're asking for staff to do that. It should not have been put in the narrative if that's what we're not doing anything with it. You guys are. That's the point. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am, it does.
Well, the attorney's shaking his head, and I like that idea. So, as long as the attorney's shaking his head, I'm fine. Anything else?
No.
All right. Commissioner Frank.
Question regarding the EV parking, EV
Yes.
charging. So there's 50 spaces total, 10 going online now, 40 going online in the future.
Correct.
What's the trigger mechanism for those 40?
I would let the applicant answer that if I could.
Good evening, good evening, Madam Chair, members of the Commission. My name is Matt Klein. I'm with Lincoln Avenue Capital, the applicant. Regarding your question, Commissioner Frank, it will be determined. So, to provide a little bit of context for this project, and I can go into my presentation as well. This is affordable housing, as you all know, under Section 42, and is desperately needed by the city to diversify the housing stock, drive retail and commercial growth. And because of that, our program requires that we're partially federally subsidized. And so as a component of that, our capital stack, or the way that we create these projects, is very, very tight. So when interest rates go up, our financing becomes more expensive. When we have to, like we can't raise our rents because we're federally mandated to keep them at 60% of AMI. And so your question is perfectly valid, but each EV charging station costs roughly $25,000 to install. And so right now, the only way we would love to put all of them in right now. We're incredibly bullish on the long-term need for, environmental and sustainable, incorporation in projects, as is evidenced by our massive, call it $3 million solar carport system that we have installed that I can walk you through as well. So we're very, very invested. One other point, under Section 42, we're mandated to own these projects for a minimum of 15 years. And so we're long-term owners and operators, and that's just another reason that we're so heavily invested in the long-term sustainability. And so they absolutely will come online, but at this juncture, the only way the current environment, financing-wise, and actually structuring this goes, we can only provide those 10 right now, just from a fiscal perspective. But we do agree that there's a need for them, and we're looking forward to being able to provide that into the future.
Are those a component of your sustainability credits?
Those are not.
No? Okay. Just kind of concerns like if say the economic conditions don't improve, some point in the future, but the demand for the EV charging stations are still there. It's, somebody could be left out with the charge their vehicle, even though this was kind of baked in the long run. So it's all just up to management to when they want to do that?
That's correct. And we, like I said, we are invested currently between our solar system. We'll be targeting, call it a 60% offset to total electrical demand on the site. And so part of that will be going to the EV chargers. And so there's a great use case for them. There are also other federal programs that were currently just passed that are providing subsidy for EV chargers. And so to the extent that legislation comes out or more clarity comes out regarding those programs, that's absolutely something that we would look into because it would become more fiscally feasible.
My other question was regarding the floodplain and the Clomar application. I didn't see that mentioned, so I just had a question. Since it is currently in a Zone AE floodplain, what the plan was. I saw that it was approved by staff, but is it going to Pinal County for review?
Yes, and we actually have our chief civil engineer from Atwell here as well, but just to talk about that very briefly, we submitted our Clomar to Pinal County a week and a half ago. And so we've been working very closely with them. The current plan is to continue the city's infrastructure that runs along the eastern boundary that was utilized to get all of this out of the floodplain. And so we'll continue that infrastructure, basically restore historic flows, and we're going in for our Clomar, and so it'll be ultimately removed from the floodplain.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Bill.
Thank you for the presentation, Derek. Couple questions. Does the city code that requires 2 distinct entrances and exits for subdivisions apply to multifamily homes developments?
Yes, they do. What it is, under the subdivision code, the lateral half distance of the lot, so if you had a square lot, one corner to the other corner, that half distance, the second entrance has to be that distance or greater from the first entrance. There only needs to be one main entrance that is an ingress and egress. The second access can be a exit only or a fire access, emergency services access only. And that satisfies that portion of the subdivision regulations that applies to all the residential development in the city.
Okay, that's kind of what I suspected, that it was allowed somewhere in the process. But I do have concerns that a development of this size has one exit onto one road. It's really a secondary road. So that concerns me. I understand the emergency exit thing. I just wanted to point that out. On our notification letters that go out to the neighbors, it looks like on the map that we really didn't touch many neighbors. Half of the notifications went to the city of Maricopa and a couple churches and then a few development companies. So my question is, the 600-foot circle, does that begin on the outer perimeter property line, or does it start from the middle of the?
It's the outer perimeter property.
Outer perimeter, okay. So
correct.
We reached out and there just happened to be nobody there.
Yeah, and if you can recall, where the site is located, there's a significant area for the WAPA easement, then White and Parker, then the park, and then the neighborhood for the subdivision.
Barely touched the backyard of a couple of them.
And that's why, for the posting of the site, staff made sure that they posted it right outside the entrance of Lococo, so that subdivision, every time someone pulled out of that subdivision, they saw an 8x4 orange sign staring them in the face to say, there's something happening right here next to you.
I appreciate that effort.
Now you know why we increased it from 300 feet.
I know.
For that exact reason.
That's good. I sang that song before I got on the commission. It was 300 wasn't enough.
We were dealing with that a long time ago.
Just a final point on my feeling about the comments that were made about administrative authority. I understand the need for it. There needs to be flexibility at the administrative level to handle the low-hanging fruit, inconsequential things. But I do understand the perception that it does leave, and that's probably a discussion for a different meeting that we will have.
Exactly. All right. I've got a couple issues. Can you put up the map that shows entrances and exits? I just happen to be looking at a landscaping one, but whichever one you want to choose. Yeah, that's the one I was looking at right there. So we see on Lococo the entrance, and then I see all the way down a gate. Is that emergency exit for
Yes.
for vehicles only, or is that the ability for
Emergency vehicles only. If we take a look at this, you'll see it lines up with the driveway. Well, not the driveway, it's Civic Center Plaza, right behind City Hall here. So for emergency vehicles, I tried my best to overlay the site plan right here so it would line up. It's a little bit off, but it's a direct line up with that. So emergency vehicles pull straight in and zip through the site.
Got it, and I understood that. But my main point of question is, does that open for anybody else other than emergency personnel?
That is my understanding of the programming at this point, that it is
So it's a
just
Knox
for
box.
emergency. Yeah.
So basically, it's a Knox box.
It's a
only.
Knox box, emergency
Okay.
access.
So can you go back to the big overview? Is there an aerial?
No, I do not have an aerial.
Somewhere I saw an aerial. My concern is the fact that there's only one way in and one way out for vehicles and pedestrians. And I see a lot of issues.
Pedestrians do have access to the south.
Sorry?
Pedestrians do have access to the south.
That's what I was asking. So this gate, they do have access to that?
Yes, there's a pedestrian gate right next to the emergency vehicular access gate, yes. It's just to the west of the drive entrance there. It's kind of hard to make out. In the commissioner's packet on the site plan, it's better shown than it is on the screen here.
Okay, if you say there's two, I'm looking at one, I can't see it. I just want to make sure of that because, again, I just know way too many.
If you follow the property line zoning TR right there, follow the property line down, you'll see pedestrian gate.
Oh, yeah, okay, I
on
see
the bottom.
it. Oh, okay, now I see it on this little itty bitty. All right, that's what my concern was. I wanted to be able to have people walk out of this because that's a long walk and they're not going to walk that. Okay, so that's that one. My other question that I had was, is there any type of, and I've brought this up in other multifamily developments that we've approved, I'm concerned with, because there's so many nooks and crannies and ins and outs and stuff like that, what is the plan in the sense of, like if there's a power outage? You know, the bollards, are they just electrical?
That is a great
or-
question, and I can touch on that a little bit, and the applicant can discuss that a little further. But all of the carports there, as the applicant had, spoke to, they have solar cells on top of them, and they are going to be generating in excess of a need. And they have looked into doing battery pack storage on the site that would then be able to power the site in the evenings or when there is a power outage, full power for the residential units.
Okay, so the carports, which
The carports have the solar cells on top of them.
That's the ones with the big X's on them then?
Yes.
Okay.
You said battery packs are going to be installed?
They've informed staff that they are looking into that, and part of the whole thing is the new regulations that were just passed on them and clarification on that, and then applying it to this site if that's possible.
We don't know if that's going to happen.
Correct, Madam Chairwoman. It's not a guaranteed item right now, but it's something that we're looking into and would very much like to incorporate given the excess of power that we will be generating through the solar panels. We're very heavily evaluating the storage packs, which would effectively come through. It's all a component of the investment tax credit and the legislation that was just recently passed. It's still being determined, the efficacy and applicability. But it's something that we, to the extent that we're able to, will very much plan to incorporate, which would act in a contingency fashion regarding power outages.
But you're still going to have the solar there. It's just a matter of whether or not
Yes,
you're...
ma'am.
Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Then I'm satisfied with that. That's one of my pet peeves. That's all I got. I'm just going to say I love these smaller. I know that people are like, oh, there's apartments going everywhere. There's apartments going everywhere. But I like the idea of the smaller groups of them instead of a big conglomerate of, 600 of them. So this is a great plan. This is a great product that I think that's going to be a plus for us. All right, guys, this is discussion and action. I'm done. Anything else? If not, I'll entertain a motion.
I would like to make a motion that we approve DRP 22-20.
Okay, got a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any other comments, questions? All right, seeing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, DRP 5.2, DRP 22-12, the Planning and Zoning Commission shall discuss and take action on a request for a major development review permit on approximately 8.47 acres for a proposed community park. This site is generally located on the southwest corner of North Powers Parkway W and West Pecone Lane within the city of Maricopa. Discussion and action.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the commission. I'm Alex Bosworth, Assistant Planner here with the City of Maricopa. And tonight I have case number DRP 2212 for the Lakes Park. There we go. The applicant is the City of Maricopa. The subject site is located on the southwest corner of Powers Parkway and West Pecone Lane in the Lakes at Rancho El Dorado subdivision. The site area is approximately 8.47 acres. And the proposal is for review and approval of the site, landscape, elevation, and photometric plans for the proposed community park. As you can see on the screen here, and as part of one of your exhibits, this is the site/landscape plan. The park would feature 2 baseball field diamonds with ball field lighting, central concrete plaza for guests and pedestrians, which will feature benches, bicycle parking, as well as a restrooms and concession building. The existing pump station on the northeast corner, on the corner of Powers and Pecone. That is an existing pump station, which will draw water from the adjacent lake, and it'll feed the landscaping and the irrigation for this park, as it is proposed. We are proposing to enclose that pump station just for a more curb appeal and to clean up the site. Associated parking, we have provided 126 spaces, which is overparked as required from our code. We wanted to prevent any spillover for parking, keep people off the local streets adjacent to it, as it was a concern from residents during the rezones neighborhood meeting. So we did add all those extra parking spaces for guests and teams and coaches, parents, etc. As you can see on the slide as well, and as part of your exhibits, we have the renderings for the concession/restroom building. It'll have an upper deck feature for park users and guests, and it'll provide a service for park goers as well as the Little League games. This is the development review process chart. As you can see here, when we got this request, it was routed to planning, fire, building, and the engineering divisions. All 4 of those divisions had to sign off on this request. For example, engineering reviewed traffic, roadway standards, floodways, drainage. Building and fire both review the adherence to their respective codes. And planning, of course, reviews the land use compatibility, zoning standards, landscaping, etc. This was also taken to external review, as well as the internal review meeting as well with all of our staff. Staff has analyzed this proposal and we do agree that it conforms with the zoning ordinance. It provides enhanced appearance of the site and a natural built environment. It's appropriate with the location of it within the general community. The elevations are well integrated, complementary to the site, and the proposal has been fully vetted by all departments and is adherent to Section 18 of the zoning ordinance. As part of the public outreach, on October 27th, both the notification letters and the sign posting were posted on the site. And I would also like to add that one written letter was received this morning by a resident. We issued those memos to you prior to the start of this meeting. And the participation report is also available in Exhibit F of the staff report. Therefore, staff does recommend that the Planning Commission approve case number DRP 2212 for the Lakes Park, subject to the conditions stated in the staff report, as well as amended by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And that concludes my presentation tonight.
Thank you. Right, Commissioner Yoakum?
Just two comments. My compliments to staff and the applicant for addressing the potential parking demand that we might have, because when you have 4 teams playing at one time, you have the coaches, the spectators, guests, and all the team members, I think you'll need all of it. You'll need as much of that parking as you have there, just about as often as not. And also, due to the potential loss of possible fields at Copper Sky, I think the timeliness on this project is certainly there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Commissioner Irving.
Oh yeah, just echo the same comments. I applaud the Parks and Rec and the city for doing this, also, especially the parking. If any of you have ever been out, these games are just really, really well attended. The other thing it does is this whole area and the whole region are desperately in need of fields. So I know we've had tournaments that have drawn from other states. So it's just a really, I think, visionary approach by our Parks and Rec, and I know they're continuing to do this, and I just think it's so wonderful that our citizens can see that it's not all just, you know, buildings, but also they're looking ahead to, you know, our ever-growing population, especially with our youth. So I just so happy to see this, you know, come about by the city, you know, without, you know, a lot of push. So again, well thought out and well done, and I just want to applaud them for that.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Commissioner Frank.
Yeah, I think it's a pretty good project overall. I do have concerns that I don't think it's really a replacement for the fields that we're potentially going to be losing at Copper Sky. I think it was mentioned in another meeting once that these fields are not on the same caliber that those fields are at, and then the parking and everything. So I don't think it's a direct replacement, but it's a step in the right direction for our youth and softball leagues and everything. The question I had is on one of your exhibits. It looked like a lot of the elements were going to be held off to a future phase. Could you talk about the phasing a little bit and when we could expect the full build out? And are we approving this as the full build out, or just a partial of it? As like I said, in the packet we had, a lot of these items like ramadas and whatnot were identified as future phases.
Yes, Commissioner Frank. As part of this phase, the concrete plaza, the 2 baseball fields, and the concession building, as well as the parking, is included in this initial phase. We don't have a timeline for the rest of the exhibit here. The ramadas, the basketball court, and a lot of the trails you see on the south. We don't have an estimated timeline at the moment for those, but we do foresee them going on with engineering permits once those phases come in. But we do include those as part of this development review permit.
Okay, so What is the tipping point for when those might be built?
Commissioner Frank, I do not have word on that. Rudy, no? Yeah, we don't have an estimated timeline for the completion of the second phase. But the first phase, they do have an estimated completion of fall of next year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Bill Robinson.
We received the public comment letter from Mr. Haskell, considerable letter with lots of bullet points. I don't see any of those bullet points really relating to us. They are more of a city council or another department, to be honest. But I'm just wondering, how will those concerns be addressed with Mr. Haskell?
Yes, some of the concerns include, for example, alcohol being served at the concession stands, for example. Other concerns regarding the pump station with the water, all of that. Well, the pump station, the water issue, has been reviewed by engineering, and it has been approved, vetted by the HOA as well. In terms of, for example, alcohol being served, that is up to the users of the park, as well as the HOA if they approve it or not. It is not up to the city whether or not to approve those.
I'm really not asking for an explanation on the bullet points. I just want to make sure that somebody communicates with Mr. Haskell in reference to his letter.
Yes, we will communicate with them in reference to the letter.
Thank you.
He just needs some education because all of these things, I mean, unfortunately, there is no quote-unquote HOA yet because they're still developer controlled, which is why it shows you the Second Amendment. I figured out what the Second Amendment was all about. And so, yeah, just if somebody could reach out to him, that'd be great.
Yes, Madam Chair.
He has some legitimate concerns, and unfortunately, like Bill said, they've got nothing to do with us. Okay, I want to go back to what Commissioner Frank was talking about, because that too is my concern, because when I'm looking at this, and this, what you have up right now shows green grass and beautiful trees and everything else like that, but in the meantime, until the city decides to do phase 2 or 2A or 3 or whatever it ends up becoming, what is that going to be? Is it just going to be pure dirt?
It will, to my knowledge, it will be unimproved for now. It's not foreseen under this phase. We don't have an estimated timeline for phase 2.
I see nothing but problems with that. I'm sorry. I struggle with that only because the fact that I see that becoming a place where people can go riding their ATVs, motorcycles, and everything else. Is there any way that we can put something there to prevent that from happening?
Madam Chair, as in, for example, ground cover, is that maybe what you're referring to?
I'm sorry, was that a question for me?
No, I was looking to see if you had any answers on. I'm just concerned about the safety.
Yeah, Madam Chair, Commissioners, it would be in my experience that although this may be in a future CIP project, any construction that we would do out there with respect to the site itself would be left in would present no, what's the word I'm looking for? It would be designed with public safety in mind. So
Developed land that you would grade out.
Pardon me?
That you'd just basically grade it out so that
Well,
it's flat and.
They would certainly secure the site, whether it be ingress, egress, both pedestrian, vehicular, onto the site. Although it may take, an undetermined time to complete the park itself, I feel confident in saying that we wouldn't leave it in a manner which would, create a potential public safety hazard. What that actually looks like, Madam Chair, I can't say. But we can communicate with J2, we can communicate with our CIP department, and let them know that that was an issue coming up at tonight's meeting.
My concern is this bank of houses of everybody that's living there. I mean, if you've got, and it's hard to kind of see because this picture cuts it off, but it was a map that was inside of our site plan on our packet. And you can see that that's all going to be dirt all the way up to the back of these houses. And so if we've got this nothing but open land, now you've got all these parking spots where people are going to want to have excess parking because they've got, you know, I know that there's 126 parking spaces, which are all going to be full if we have all of these people. And now people are going to want to start parking in the dirt, which is going to kick dust up in the air and dirt and everything else like that.
Madam Chair, with respect to the parking lot, that'll be lined out. You see a sidewalk.
What are you going to do with the extra cars? That's my point. They're going to go park in the dirt parking lot.
I'm sorry, ma'am?
There's going to be 126 parking spots. I get that. But what are you going to do when there's 150 cars? They're going to go park in this dirt lot.
Yeah, excellent point. You know, when we parked this, we parked it at a number that far exceeded to avoid that. We feel confident that in the 126 that are provided with 2 ball fields, in discussions with Parks and Recreation Department, that we were overparked and had the ability to handle not only the 2 ball fields with 4 teams, coaches, families, but also service the other amenities that are being planned for the future park within that 126. So I may have misunderstood the question there, but the development of the parking lot will create the curb gutter and sidewalk internal to the park, so there's not going to be any parking on the dirt. I mean, they're going to have to drive over curbs or through improved surfaces in order to be able to do that.
Right, and let me just, Madam Chair, Commissioners, Rudy Lopez, Development Services Director, let me just help clarify as well. Everything west of the Brown area, everything, or west of the ball fields, that is not city-owned. That is the Maricopa Unified School District owned. So we're just talking about what the city has obtained to develop itself. As Rick mentioned, the parking lot will be improved and graded properly to secure only vehicular access within the site. Anything that's beyond that is trespassing on the adjacent property that the city does not own.
Understand, I wasn't talking about the side that the school district owns. I'm talking about where you see.
Right, the trail component is on the southern side,
Yeah,
which will not be improved. It will be left as is.
All of this right here.
I can't see. I'm sorry,
No,
Madam Chair.
it's all of this stuff where you see on this side of
right,
where it says playground and it says it's where the picnic ramada is, basketball court and stuff like that. That's where I'm talking about. All of that area.
We won't leave any areas exposed dirt because of just, you have to properly landscape it for dust control measures itself.
That's what I'm concerned about.
So you have adequate landscaping to make sure that you don't have, you know, nuisance issues like that. So
that's my concern, is the fact that if this side stays undeveloped for an extended period of time, we are now going to have that dust problem. All of these homes down here that are at the bottom of this screen are going to be having to deal with that.
Any disturbed area will be properly mitigated with proper dust measures, such as decomposed granite, compacted to a point that reduces the amount of dust.
We can kick, so we can sick code enforcement on you then.
Right.
Okay, I just want it noted that I'm concerned about that because, you know, if it takes a year for that to get developed, you know, like Commissioner Frank was saying, you know, it's, I don't know, I'd like to see it all done at one time. I get the fact that there's money involved and I get that, but we should do something to mitigate that because people will drive over curbs to park. Do it all the time. You forget I live next to Copper Sky and watch it every single solitary holiday.
I see the La Quinta Hotel parking lot all the time. I get it. Agree.
I see that happening here, and I'm just trying to protect these homeowners. All right.
Loud and clear.
That's all I have. All right. This is discussion and action, commissioners.
Motion to approve.
Motion. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We do have a motion and a second. All those, any other comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? So moved. Thank you. All right, reports from commission and/or staff.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Commissioners, nothing new to report tonight. I would say, just want to thank you for your time and wish everyone a very happy Thanksgiving. We're going to have one meeting in December, which will be the 12th of December. It's shaping up as a very healthy meeting.
Bringing dinner?
Pardon me?
You bringing dinner? Is that what you're trying to say?
Possibly so. But other than that, I have nothing to report, and just to say thank you very much and have a happy Thanksgiving.
All right, thank you.
Move we adjourn.
I have a motion to adjourn. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Good night.
Thank you so much for that development.
Ron?
I remember I would go down some riverbeds and we'd pick some out and I'd wash them and clean them, and there was a book that was like Painting on Rocks Volume 1.